The NBA play-in tournament has finally concluded and ended off with an Eastern Conference. Out of the four teams, we did see the Boston Celtics take on the 7th seed, and the Washington Wizards hold on to making the playoffs for the 8th seed. And in the Western Conference, the LA Lakers secured that 7th seed, and on the 8th seed, we did see none other else than the Memphis Grizzlies overthrow the Golden State Warriors, knocking them out. So I'm going to give my take about each playoff series here in quick depth, and we'll jump into it. So for the Eastern Conference, we do have the Philadelphia 76ers going against none other than the Washington Wizards. For the Wizards, this was the most ideal matchup over the Brooklyn Nets. Not too much to talk about on that side of things. We do know Phillies have had a hot season. They do have Doc Rivers as a new head coach and Joel Embiid as a potential MVP. If anything, top two within the race. This is going to be a fun matchup to say the least. Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. I'll throw in Scott Brooks. They have a tremendous amount of playoff experience. And for the Philadelphia 76ers side of things, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, this will be their fourth outing. They've never made a conference finals within their 3 years in the playoffs playing together. I do have the Philadelphia 76ers taking this series in 5 games. At max, I could see this going 6 games, but I'll throw some respect and allow the Washington Wizards to pull one game at home, preferably a Game 3 or Game 4 win. But nonetheless, I do expect Joel Embiid to go and eat out in the inside. Alex Len is not going to be able to contain Joel Embiid, who can easily average 30 a night. Now, Joel Embiid has been getting at the line a lot within the regular season, so in the playoffs, that's a different story. But besides from that, they have the offensive weapons out there with Tobias Harris, and as well as you do have Ben Simmons. But the team, as good as it is, the Washington Wizards are very forced to make offensive moves, and that team is not ideally offensively. It's the Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal system ideally, but pretty easy. The 76ers should win this in 5 or 6 games. I'm going to have to roll with 5. Next, we do have the New York Knicks going against the Atlanta Hawks. So two of these teams did not make the playoffs last season. They were far from it. And they squeaked in as young franchises and young movements. So kudos to these two, man. If you would have ever said the New York Knicks in the 2021 NBA season would have locked down a 4th seed and secured home court, people would have laughed at you, man. This is a huge accomplishment, bringing in Tom Thibodeau. You have veterans out there in Taj Gibson. I mean, you have Tom Thibodeau. You have Reggie Bullock. You have Derrick Rose you acquired via a trade, and so on and so forth. So Julius Randle, most improved player by a long shot, very easily, and he's top 5 in MVP. He should be. We're going against, or the New York Knicks are going to go against the Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young, and you do have DeAndre Hunter coming back into the lineup, so that's huge good news. Bringing in a new coach with Nate McMillan, who's brought in a huge, tremendous approach to this team structure and franchise. The 3 outings they did play against, the New York Knicks did beat the Atlanta Hawks accordingly within those games. Now, if I'm looking at this series, I do believe this is going to be a neck-and-neck series. It's going to be a long-term series. I don't expect a sweep. Do not expect 5 games. I expect this to go 6 or 7 games. And when it comes down to a foundation of a team, head coaching and structure, and top defense, I'm going to have to squeak out the New York Knicks to win this series in 7 games. I could see it go 6 games, but I'll throw the Atlanta Hawks their credit due, especially with Nate McMillan, who was the head coach for the Indiana Pacers when they win 7 games against LeBron's Cleveland Cavaliers in 2018. But the New York Knicks, I like them top down. I do like their defensive side. I like their willingness to not throw the ball to a quote-unquote star player and let them be the system, but they work together. So I'm going to go with the New York Knicks winning this series in 7 games. Next, we do have the rematch of the 2020 semis, which is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks against the Miami Heat. Same outing as the last season. In the playoffs, in the semis, the Miami Heat were the 5th seed, and you did see the Milwaukee Bucks with the number 1 seed. That did result into Milwaukee winning that series in 5 games, which debatably could have been 4-game sweep, but we saw how it kind of unfolded with Chris Middleton going off like a 2017 KD, but that's neither here or there. This series is going to be interesting. There's no bubble. There's still going to be fans. There's going to be quote-unquote home court. And the Milwaukee Bucks have been rolling all season. The Miami Heat have been catching it back up. There's been a lot of people in the media and let us alone fans. I get the perspective that they're rolling with the Miami Heat after a dominant performance as of last season. Now you do have Drew Holiday, who's a new acquisition within this team. Same thing with Bobby Portis and PJ Tucker for the Milwaukee Bucks that bring in some veterans, guys who can score out there and bring in some more perimeter shooting and toughness. So this is going to be an interesting series, man. This could go either way with just Miami just steamrolling the Bucks once again. We could see the Miami Heat win this in 7 games. We could see the Bucks go another way. I'm actually going to have to roll with the Milwaukee Bucks to win this series, and I'm going to have to say in around 7 games. You know, Giannis mentally, this is a true testament to see if he's actually that type of tier player or not. Because if Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis lose in this first round series to the Miami Heat, we're really seeing more evidence about Giannis Antetokounmpo not become that guy and that star player. So I'm holding everything onto Giannis Antetokounmpo and these Milwaukee Bucks to win this series. I think Miami will be a little too late that they're finally getting the groove at the end of the season. But the Milwaukee Bucks, they look centered. They look in a good position to win this series. So I'm going to have to go with Milwaukee in 7. This one could be all over the place, but that's what I'm rolling with. And the Miami Heat really folded, man, because if they would have won one more game and if they would have caught up, they would have had either a 4th or 5th seed, which they would have been my favorites to win that first round series against either the Knicks or the Hawks. But too little, too late. The Miami Heat are in this tough situation. Picking the Bucks to win it. Next, we do have the Brooklyn Nets against the Boston Celtics. The Celtics, elephant in the room, Jaylen Brown's out for the season. He's out for 3 months, so he's not going to be able to participate. We did see the Boston Celtics steamroll past the Washington Wizards, and when people were picking the Wizards to win that play-in tournament, which I have the Celtics winning, the Boston Celtics do have a playoff identity. They have an identity for their whole culture. Do they have the right roster pieces surrounding Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and the crew? I say no. I've been stating that. When it comes to the playoffs, I'm going to have to show some respect to the Boston Celtics in this series by giving them 1 game. You may think that's pretty disrespectful, but yeah, listen, when you have the big 3 Brooklyn Nets with James Harden, Kyrie, and KD, it's too much, too little for that you're asking for Jason Tatum. I expect Jason Tatum to have 1 game with around 40 points and above, and they'll squeak out a win against the Brooklyn Nets. So I'll give the Brooklyn Nets winning the series in 5 games. All right, let's jump here a little more quicker in this side of things into the Western Conference first round. The Utah Jazz and now the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies just defeated the Golden State Warriors in an overtime thriller, which the Warriors pretty much, folded that game. But Ja Morant, man, he's an impact player. He's like a young Damian Lillard. He is like a Donovan Mitchell. And nonetheless, they're going to be playing Donovan Mitchell in the Utah Jazz. I fully expect Donovan Mitchell to play game 1, as it looks like that is the trend. I think this is going to be a low-key. This could be a low-key series. This is not going to be a sweep. I actually expect this to go 6 games. The Utah Jazz are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. Credit due to Rudy Gobert. We've seen an emergence in the 6th man of the year, most likely to be with Jordan Clarkson, and big performances with Joe Ingles, Bojan Bojanovic, and Royce O'Neal. Donovan, and especially with Mike Conley making an all-star appearance, who bounced back from a pretty absurd, bad first season with the Jazz. But the Jazz are a contender in the Western Conference. The Memphis Grizzlies will get their playoff experience. They will have some great outings within this series, but I do expect I'm actually going to pick the Jazz to win this in 6 games, not a sweep, not in 5. Listen, the Grizzlies are a unit, and I like what they have going on over there in Memphis. So I actually give them the opportunity for them to win 2 games, but I'm going to pick the Jazz to win this in 6 games max. If anything, most likely in 5 games, but I'm going to have to roll with Jazz in 6. Next series, we have a rematch of the 2020 first round series for the LA Clippers against the Dallas Mavericks. The Clippers were I believe, a 2nd seed, and the Mavericks were a 7th. That went 6 games last season. Kristaps Porzingis was suspended the rest of game 1, which the Clippers did win. Porzingis was out, I believe, Game 3 and Game 6, or maybe something along those lines. And Luka Doncic had to put the team on his back, and he did squeak out 2 wins and a game winner. So the Dallas Mavericks are now in a new situation. Porzingis is allegedly healthy. You do have Josh Richardson on the team, except for Seth Curry now. And essentially, Luka Doncic gets more playoff experience under his belt. And now it's a 4th and 5th seed matchup. So there's not a big distinction between the seedings. This is right in the middle where it needs to be. This is going to be an interesting series. I don't believe this is going to be the same as last season, where the Mavericks were basically putting the Clippers on check, exposing them. The Clippers have brought in DeMarcus Cousins, Rajon Rondo, Nicholas Batum, Serge Ibaka. They're filling in the veteran roles, providing structure and stability. And with Tyronn Lue as the head coach, he understands he's won a championship recently in the last 5 seasons with the Cavaliers and 2 finals appearances after that. He's going to make it a different approach for Kawhi and Paul George, especially with Rajon Rondo out there. There's going to be more open offensive opportunities for Paul George and Kawhi to play off the ball and get easy baskets. So, due to the structure and new roster for the LA Clippers, I'm going to have to pick the Clippers to win this series. You know, there's a side of me that says Clippers wins this in 7 games. And then there's another side that says this is going to be a shorter series for the Clippers to win in 5 games. But, I'm just going to throw out the Clippers in 7 games. I'll show some respect to Luka Doncic and the crew. I'll say Clippers in 7 games. But that's going to be a thrilling first-round series. Let's jump here a little quicker. We have the Nuggets against the Blazers. This is interesting. 2 seasons ago, they faced off in the semis, and that's when the Blazers took down the Nuggets in 7 games. This series would not surprise me if the Blazers win. Jokic is most likely going to be the MVP. There is no Jamal Murray. And last season in the playoffs, Jamal Murray, when they were down 3-1 to the Utah Jazz, Jamal Murray was one of the main reasons and a closer out there to why they were able to win that series, let alone when they were down 3-1 to the LA Clippers. In this position, Damian Lillard is a dog. You do have the right pieces surrounding within him. But on the Denver Nuggets side of things, they understand how to win basketball games, let alone in a series against a team like the Blazers, who rely heavily on CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard in that small ball lineup. I believe this series goes 6 games at least. And I'm actually going to have to pick the Denver Nuggets to win the series, as 2 seasons ago the Blazers did beat them, but I'll give the 6-7 games. I'm going to go over to the Denver Nuggets. But if I had to lock something in, I'll put the Nuggets in 6. Next matchup, we do have the Phoenix Suns against the LA Lakers. So the Lakers were able to beat the Warriors and squeak in that 7th seed. I believe this is going to be around a 5 or 6 game series. I'm leaning more towards 6 due to quote-unquote rust. And I'll give respect to the Phoenix Suns, what they've done within their team. But the LA Lakers have the huge advantage within the series about their bigs, let alone with their size. No one's going to be able to stop LeBron James and Anthony Davis this series. Great matchups for the LA Lakers as they're defending the Phoenix Suns. I don't care if the Lakers are a 7 seed. The Lakers are going to win the series at most 6 games, at least 5. I'm going with LA to win this. It's a shame, man, because the Phoenix Suns have had an amazing season with Chris Paul and Devin Booker, but it's just a bad matchup. So it is what it is. All right, second round in the Eastern Conference, we have the Philadelphia 76ers against the New York Knicks. I'm going to have to go with the 76ers to win that series in 5 games. Not too much to talk about. Philly has the playoff experience. They have the better players out there. They have the size, and let alone they have a championship contending team. The New York Knicks, I say they can squeak out 1 game. I'll give them, I'll give them the props for that. But I'm picking Philly in 5. Next series, the Bucks against the Brooklyn Nets. Now, a lot of people do have the Milwaukee Bucks overthrowing the Brooklyn Nets within this series. Listen, if you have James Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant, that's going to offset the Milwaukee Bucks, especially in the clutch time of series. And in the long run, the Nets do have the more dynamite offensive firepower. So the Bucks do have great size. It really comes down to Giannis in the clutch, and I don't trust him as much. I believe this actually goes around 7 games. I'm actually gonna have to pick the Brooklyn Nets to win this game, or win this series against the Milwaukee Bucks. In the Western Conference, we do have the number 1 seeded Jazz against the number 4 seeded LA Clippers. Um, I believe this is going 6 games within this series. This is an opportunity for the Utah Jazz to make a statement to get to the conference finals, let alone for the Clippers, who's never made it in conference finals or never made it in their history of their franchise. This is going to be a pretty even match. If we're looking about the offensive firepower on the half-court set, especially in the clutch, I believe the LA Clippers are well positioned in their outings to win this series. I'm not going to jump too much into there. I like the roster for the LA Clippers, what they're building off of. And the Jazz are going to be a threat, but I'm actually going to have to pick the Clippers to win this series in 6 games over the Utah Jazz. So the Clippers, number 4 seed, are going to head off to the conference finals, who won that series on the road. We do have the 7-seeded LA Lakers against the 3-seeded Denver Nuggets. We saw what happened last season. Lakers won in 5 games. Now there is no Jamal Murray, and the Lakers are supposedly going to be 100% healthy. So I'm actually going to have to pick the LA Lakers. I would pick the Lakers to sweep that series. I'm not going to lie. At most 5 games, but I have to pick the Lakers in a sweep against the Denver Nuggets, with Jokic just out there with Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. When they don't have a true offensive threat and closer like Jamal Murray, that leaves an opportunity for the Lakers just to go in and just dismantle the Nuggets. And you're asking too much of Nikola Jokic within that playoff series. All right, in the Eastern Conference, we do have the conference finals with the Philadelphia 76ers at the 1st seed and the Brooklyn Nets within the 2nd seed. A lot of people do have the 76ers going to the finals. Same thing with the Brooklyn Nets. I believe it's around, it's like 40%, 40%, then the other 10 to 20 is around the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. It's going to be an interesting series, man. If I'm looking within playoff experience, the dominant personalities against the young cats out there, I'm going to have to actually pick the Brooklyn Nets to win this series in 6 games. I don't like the quote-unquote clutch opportunities for Joel Embiid and or Ben Simmons. I don't believe it will be existent as much going against the Brooklyn Nets when the game slows down and you need ISO scores to get easy buckets. The Nets are going to have more opportunities to actually capitalize. I'm picking the Nets to win that series in 6. We do have the Battle of LA, I expect, with the 4-seeded Clippers against the 7-seeded LA Lakers. Different roster moves. I already explained about the Clippers. For the Lakers, they have Drummond out there with Dennis Schroeder. This is going to be a battle of battles. This is going 7 games. The Clippers will have home court. Now, when it comes to the mental side of things, I believe the Lakers have the advantage. They're more of a unit. They've won a championship. They've been through the gritty times. They understand what they can go through, and they want this matchup. I'm going to have to roll with LeBron James and the LA Lakers to win the series in 7 games. Now we're leaving off with the NBA Finals with the Brooklyn Nets having home court over the 7-seeded LA Lakers. This is going to be a very interesting series. I believe this series is up in the making. That's going to go down with. Listen, the Brooklyn Nets have their flaws. I don't like the true nature of their whole roster and their bench together. There's some pieces that fit, but there's also others that are just kind of throw in too little too late. Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant are still just something to prove within their legacies. Kevin Durant trying to be a number 1 guy within a franchise to win a championship. Kyrie Irving trying to get that other championship under his belt. And James Harden trying to get his first championship, as they're going to try to juggle together. You do have Steve Nash as a rookie head coach, and push comes to shove, who are the Nets going to look for to be that leader when they're down in games, or when they quote-unquote choke or something like that? Are they going to look at Kevin Durant, Kyrie, or James Harden? All 3 are quote-unquote unstable for that position. Steve Nash, unstable. Mike D'Antoni has not won a championship. So there is that kind of chaotic energy up in the air for opportunities. For the Lakers, they do have a backbone and structure with Frank Vogel, LeBron James, who's a multiple-time winner, and Anthony Davis as a second. I actually believe the LA Lakers are going to win this NBA championship series in 6 games against the Brooklyn Nets. And that's where I have it right there. LeBron James is going to win his 5th championship. Number 18 championship for the Lakers, most in NBA history. Kudos to them. The first time a 7 seed is going to win a championship. I believe some implosion is going to happen with the Brooklyn Nets somehow, some way. And I like the backbone and structure of the consistent LA Lakers, of course, when they're healthy. And there's going to be many opportunities to where Drummond may even have to come off the bench due to the Brooklyn Nets like to go small. Maybe they throw Blake Griffin at the 5, or who knows about that. But Drummond most likely can come off the bench. Besides from that, got the LA Lakers winning the championship. That's been my pick for the whole season, and it's kind of more of a breakdown within right here. I do expect the Brooklyn Nets. They have to make it to the NBA Finals. I don't expect anyone in the East to take them down. The Bucks are going to be a great matchup if they go against the Brooklyn Nets. If the Miami Heat can beat the Bucks the first round series, then that's still going to be a big matchup as well to kind of slow them down. But I'll have to pick the LA Lakers. That's what I'm rolling with. And yeah.